Welcome to Backstage with Becca B, with special guest, Kristyn Evelyn. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca B. On this episode, this Texas native graduated from Oklahoma City University with a BFA in acting and made the move to Los Angeles to pursue theater, film, and TV. Please welcome Kristyn Evelyn. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. I'm gonna say there's a thunderstorm rolling in. I'm in Texas right now.
Okay.
So I don't know if my internet connection is gonna hold up, but I'm on my phone, so hopefully it does.
I know.
Connected to my hotspot. So.
Where in Texas are you?
Dallas.
Okay, I'm from Texas. I'm from Houston.
I saw that last night, and I was like, I think I knew that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Born and raised.
Yeah. The South.
Yeah.
The South is where it's humid all summer.
Ugh, awful.
Especially in Houston.
I remember I went back after like 2 years of living in LA to visit my mom in August. Her birthday is August 12th. And I went back to Houston, and I remember stepping off of the plane and just being like, ugh, yeah. I already feel wet.
Yeah, I feel like Houston especially is like swampy weather, kind of.
Yes, very much.
And it's like, this is a different kind of heat than LA, for sure.
Yes.
But I heard you all had a heat that had record highs in LA.
Yeah, it finally broke yesterday, but it was a week of like, it felt like 115. It was awful.
Wow. Well, I'm glad everyone's doing well then.
No, I went outside yesterday expecting it to be like the worst, and I was like, oh,
that's nice.
Hey, this is 85. I can do 85. That's fine.
Yeah, you're like, this is perfect. We love this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on this with me and talking with me.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I always love watching the interviews that you do. So excited to be here.
Thank you. It's been so much fun getting to talk about theater again during this time in the world and trying to bring back.
Like I miss it so much. So I can only imagine like how wonderful it's been to just like dive into it.
Yes. Well, speaking of diving into it, I'll go into the first question, which is, when have you always known that you wanted to perform or be in the entertainment industry in some aspect?
Yes. Yeah. I grew up singing. My family attended church a lot, and so I found my love of music there, like singing in church choir, and we played the bells and everything. Yeah, and then my mom enrolled me in piano lessons really early, and then God, it was like the fourth grade. One of my best friends was in a community theater production it was a children's theater production of The Snow Queen. And I went to see her, and I was just like, I have to do that. And so in the lobby after the show, there was a poster for auditions for the next children's theater show. It was The Jungle Book. I turned to my mom and I was like, can I audition? And she was like, really? And I was like, yes. And from then on, it was just like, how much theater can I fit into my life at one time?
Yes. And is Houston known for theater at all?
Not really. I mean, there are companies. There are only a few equity houses. There's Tuts, Theater Under the Stars, which uses the same theater that like all of the national tours roll through. I forget what it's called now. Oh, I've seen so many plays there and musicals. And then there's also the Alley Theater.
Oh, yeah.
And then like a couple of other smaller community theaters. Some of them pay, a lot of them don't. There's definitely like a passionate theater community there. It's just there isn't as much.
So how did you work on finding theaters to get involved in while you lived in Houston?
I mostly, I mean, I did a lot of children's theater community stuff until high school, because that's all I knew about. And my mom didn't know how to like figure out how to get me into the professional children's theater programs, because there are schools like that in Houston. And she didn't want me to go to the performing arts high school in Houston because it was downtown and we lived too far away from it, and public school is better to get you socially acclimated, whatever, blah blah. I think she just really didn't want to drive me there every day.
Probably didn't want to drive with the traffic.
Yep. Yeah, so I went to a regular high school, and my high school actually had a pretty great theater program there, so I just kind of focused on, doing high school theater. Yeah, and then I got my BFA in acting at Oklahoma City University. Yeah.
Two states that aren't particularly as known for theater as like places like New York, Chicago, East Coast states, etc.
Oh yeah.
Even LA, I would say, because LA is like, even though it's mostly TV and film, the theater scene is definitely growing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I think the reason I chose OCU because I auditioned for places all over. But at the time, Kristyn Chenoweth was my absolute favorite actors. I mean, she still is. God, she's amazing. And OCU was her alma mater.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh my God, I get to go to the school that Kristyn Chenoweth studied at. Yes. So I thought that was really cool at the time. And they gave me a pretty decent scholarship. So.
And there's a lot of people that have come out of Oklahoma who, besides Kristyn Chenoweth.
Oh yeah, Kelly O'Hara also went to OCU.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I talked to someone the other day who's from Oklahoma. I don't know if she went to school. She didn't go to school in Oklahoma, but she's from Oklahoma. So it's like, there are theater people from Oklahoma.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oklahoma City, when I first moved there, the city was kind of in like an upswing. And now it's a little bit more metropolitan than it was when I first moved there. I think the getting of the basketball team, as odd as this sounds to say, but when the Oklahoma City Thunder came to Oklahoma City, everyone was just like, oh, well, let's just build this city up because we have a basketball team now. And they kind of did, which was, good for everyone that lived there, I guess.
Were you into watching sports games because sports are a thing in the South while you went to school, or did you mainly?
Oh yeah. I became a huge Oklahoma City Thunder fan. Yeah, knew everything about the team. That was just kind of, if you liked basketball and you lived in Oklahoma City, especially coming from Houston, I grew up a Houston Rockets fan my entire life. And then I moved to Oklahoma, and it was just like the team was so young and they were doing so well. And I think my senior year was the first time they like did really well in the championships. So everyone it was like we all watched the games.
Yeah, that's a big rush and a big special thing to be part of, to watch the team succeed.
Yeah.
What was your favorite show that you participated in when you were a kid through college years?
Oh. Okay. Can I have two answers?
You can have two answers because that's a long period of time.
It's a lot.
Okay. You can even have three if you want.
Fantastic. Okay. So the community theater that I grew up working in, it was called Playhouse 1960. And it was like right down the street from my childhood home, and there was a production of The Hobbit the musical. Yes. Yes. It's written for children, so it's not something that like adults should perform for an adult audience. But it had like original music. It was so cute, and I have always been a really big nerd, so I read the Hobbit books at a really young age. So I remember just being like, oh my God, yes, I get to be in the Hobbit. This is so cool. But of course there weren't many female parts. So I played a dwarf. I played, not only did I play a dwarf, but I played the fat dwarf written in the story. I played Bomber.
You're like, I remember the name and everything.
Yes. I had to wear a beard and like a fat pillow. It was hysterical. Looking back at pictures of it now, and like there were 13 dwarves. I even still remember some of the music too. There were 13 dwarves and like half of them were girls. But it was really fun. It like my nerd side and my like musical theater side like clashed. And then in college, my favorite production was Chekhov's Three Sisters. I got to play Irina. Yeah. The acting program at OCU was very classically based, so there was always at least one Shakespeare, one Chekhov show in every yearly season. But Three Sisters was the classic show that year, or one of them, I guess. And it was one of those shows that I'll just remember forever because the cast was amazing. The director, his specialty was Chekhov. So it was just this, for the first time, I think in my life, I felt like I am an actor. I am doing this. I know what I'm doing. So that was kind of like a turning point as far as my college career goes.
Like I can succeed in this in the long term.
Yeah.
That's a good refreshing like kind of feeling to have for like to grow that much from when you were a kid and like finally like I don't know, believe in yourself like that.
Yes. Yeah. It was just one of those shows. I'm sure you have like every actor you talk to has like that show, you know?
Yes.
That for me, I think was the first, like you said, just the turning point of like, no, I can do this and I can be happy doing this. And this, I've always known that this is what I want to do, but now it was like the spark, like the flame was always there. And that show just like turned up the gas, you know?
Yes. Do you have a show that challenged you the most in college or high school?
Actually, yeah, but not in the way that you'd expect. So my sophomore year of college, I got cast as an understudy for Hippolyta in Midsummer Night's Dream, like the smallest role in the show aside from the fairies, but the fairies get more stage time. And I remember I came into college with a really big chip on my shoulder. And casting me as an understudy in that show was the administration's way of just being like, look, you're talented, but nobody wants to work with you. So we're going to give you a chance. And if you do really well as an understudy, like you have things to learn. So either you learn them here in this show or like you can't continue in this program. So it was challenging so much in the fact that like it was a big wake up call for me because so much of succeeding in this business is not being talented, but being someone that other people want to work with, that other people can depend on. Like that's half of in-person auditions are, okay, yeah, she's great, but like, if she's on a set, do I want to work with her for 3 months? Yeah. Or, if this show runs for 6 months, is everyone going to hate her by the end of it? So that show challenged me, not so much artistically, but just emotionally. It was a really big growing period that like my second semester of my sophomore year, I was just like, okay, I don't matter. The show matters.
Yeah. And it's like I'm hoping the show succeed.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not how can I make this scene about showing everyone how talented I am, and like actually how can I just serve the words or the song, or like how can I throw my attention to what the audience should be looking at the moment.
Yeah. It's like a teamwork thing. I didn't realize until recently that like theater programs in these schools are to an essence the same as sports programs in schools.
Very much. Yeah. Because like, yes, there is the star of every show, but it's a give and take. Like the ensemble, you know, they get their chance to shine, but for the most part, they serve the story. They serve the like momentum moving forward, and then also in turn, the stars of the show set the tone for everyone else. You know, like it's if you are lucky enough to be cast in the lead as a show of a show, then it's your responsibility to lead by example.
Yeah.
So it's and it's the best theater programs in the country. And I'm not saying I went to one of the best ones because I sure didn't. I came out to LA so unprepared, and that's a different story. But yeah, the best theater programs will teach you everything you need to know about every facet of the business, not just how to be the star.
Yeah. But you did learn about understudying.
I sure did. And to this day, I swear, being a swing or an understudy in the show, being a swing especially, if you have multiple tracks to learn, it is the hardest job. So I respect swings so much.
Yeah, they sometimes have like more than 8 tracks, and it's like, how do you fit all that in your head?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane.
Nuts.
They have like ways of learning.
Yeah.
And then speaking of LA, when did you move out to LA, and what inspired you to move out to LA?
I moved out in August of 2011. So right after the summer I graduated from college. And I actually had a really hard time choosing between New York and Chicago. And New York, I knew that I would do really well in New York and Chicago because they're a little bit more, both of them are more theater towns.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any equity points at all. So the 2 weeks after I graduated from college, I was in my senior showcase in New York. And so I spent 2 weeks in New York just auditioning as much as I could and trying to figure out the city. And I took a couple meetings with agents up there. And because I wasn't an EMC, an equity membership candidate, I couldn't even get into half of the auditions that I went to. There were a few non-union ones I went to where it's just, you know, show up as early as you can and get your name on the list. But, you know, I remember the first one I went to, it was, I forget what theater it was, but I showed up at like 6 a.m. to be first in line on the non-union list. And I was like 5th because I didn't get there early enough because it's New York. But then I sat and I waited all day, and I sat from like 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then eventually the monitor came out and was like, thank you, we're only going to be able to see one non-union person today. And then I remember walking back to my friend's apartment that I was staying at and just being like, this would be my life for months if I lived here. And plus I hate cold weather.
Oh, yeah, same.
I hate cold weather, and Chicago is so cold. New York is cold, it's not as cold. But yeah, I talked to a couple of people who had been working in Chicago for decades, and they were like, it is very rare that you would move to Chicago and be a full-time working actor. Like you're never, even if you're equity, even if you're booked at an equity house year-round in Chicago, you're still not really going to make enough money where you don't have to have some kind of a day job or a partner that supports you. And I was just like, well, I don't want that either. So I moved to LA because that was the third option, and film and TV had always interested me. And I was like, well, you know, at least if I'm miserable and not auditioning, at least it'll be sunny.
That's true. And apparently 120 degrees.
God, yeah, sometimes. It didn't used to get that hot. When I first moved here 9 years ago, I remember there being like a few days of it being like, woo, it's a scorcher. But
Yeah.
for the most part, like open your windows at night in August, it's fine.
Right?
do that, and it makes me sad because climate change is real.
Yeah, my mom was like, it's like we're switching climates with, like, it's like Texas and California are switching right
Yeah.
now. Because Texas normally,
Yeah.
it gets to like 110 in the summer. So,
Yeah, regularly.
so people are like complaining in LA, and I'm like, oh, guys, you haven't grown up in Texas where it's like 130 degrees every day in July.
Yeah.
But it's a weird time.
Weird. It's bizarre.
And then, how did you get involved in the LA community when you moved to LA?
So it took a while. When I first moved here, I decided to focus more on film and television. And I auditioned for plays whenever I could, but gosh, in LA, it's also just as hard in New York to get into equity auditions. Um, just because, if I didn't have any EMC points for a really long time. In fact, I never even made any EMC points. I just recently took my equity card, like right before the pandemic started. So every equity audition I went to, I was non-union. Um,
Wow.
yeah, but
That's
when I,
impressive.
mm,
For
yeah, when
9
I
years?
first, 9 years. Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
I mean, granted, there were a few factors that kind of like took me away from theater, and like it wasn't my main focus because I was like, well, I'm in LA, I might as well like push towards film and TV. So I did that for like the first 3 years that I lived here. Um, I did that, and I did a whole bunch of student films, and I couldn't get an agent, mostly just because I didn't know how. And a lot of the times that like how to succeed in Los Angeles is that information is really guarded by people that know how to do it well. Because like nepotism, one, I didn't know anybody when I moved here. I knew no one. I was completely alone except for like the few friends that I had from college. And then I had very little money, and so a lot of the here's how to get an agent or agent showcases or casting director workshops, which aren't a thing anymore. But or like buy this, program on how to do the business. It cost money, and I just didn't have any. So I tried to do it by like good old fashioned trial and error, and networking as much as I could. But I like the program that I went to just did not prepare me for Los Angeles because, it was Oklahoma.
oh, yeah. They don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So my progress was a lot slower, but I did a lot of 99 seat theater that did not pay very well. I tried to like make stuff with friends. I performed a production of Twelfth Night in a park in Echo Park, like
Oh,
not actually Echo Park, just like this weird, I don't even remember what it was called, but I think maybe 6 people came. um,
hey,
yeah,
that's
so it
all.
was it was just a lot of like grinding and like I don't know what I'm doing. Why do I live here? But I love it. And how do I do this? And I don't know for
Yeah.
a while. And then I got into teaching yoga, and um the business had just like beaten me down, and I had lost my passion for it a little bit because it was so hard. And I started teaching yoga because I was like, I need to find a day job that doesn't suck my soul out of my face. And so I started teaching yoga as a way to make some money. And then I kind of fell in love with that process. And I took a break from auditioning, from anything. I was still taking classes, but I was just like, I think I need to focus on something else for a second and like remember why I moved out here and if I still want to live here. So I taught yoga full time for like a year and a half. Um,
Hey, good for you.
yeah. And then I remember having this moment of being like, I don't want to be a yoga teacher. I want to be an actor. What am I doing? So, I stopped my break from the business and like dove back in.
But it's what you needed at the time. It's like it's the refreshment that your body needed and your mind needed, because it's such a hard industry. You get so many no's so many times, especially like since you were going out for things without having the equity
Yeah.
status.
Yeah.
Like that's
It was, yeah, it was hard. And so I'm like, I wish that I knew now what I wish that I had all of the knowledge that I have right now back then, because it wouldn't have been so hard for me.
yeah.
I think not at all, but yeah, I think I needed the break. It was a way to kind of like re remember who I was and what I wanted. Um, and also in Los Angeles, you just can't make money as a yoga instructor.
The sad truth.
Yeah. So I was still scraping by and I was still like, it was still hard. I was driving all over town. I would like teach in Venice and then teach in Glendale and then teach in Hollywood and then teach in Pasadena. So I was driving everywhere and I was like, I'm not making enough money. And I didn't move out to Los Angeles to be a yoga instructor. I could do that anywhere. Why
And
am I still doing this? And I was like, fuck it, whatever.
yeah, yes. But as you mentioned before, networking, huge thing. Though
Huge,
it,
huge.
I don't think people realize how big of a thing it is, and like why people in LA like go out and enjoy nightlife every night. It's mostly about the networking in the end.
Yeah. Honestly, I know so many people have said this before and it's so cliche, but it's like 90% about who you know,
Yes.
you know? Because like half of the projects that I've been brought onto in the last 2 years were through friends that I have made just by living here. Or it's a friend of a friend that recommended me to them, you know?
Yeah.
So it's so important, networking. It's a skill that you have to develop. And it's not just like going out and meeting people and being friends. It's here's my business card, you know?
Yeah.
Here's what I'm good at, and like being able to slip that into conversation without it being like, here's a sales pitch about why you should keep me in your contact list forever.
Yes. And I can imagine as an actress and someone who works like on stage in front of cameras that it's a bit different to network than someone versus someone who works like behind the scenes and
Yeah.
is in the as like it's more competitive. I would feel like networking.
Yeah, it's very different. It's and like I'm an introverted person.
Yes.
Um and it's really difficult to like insert yourself into situations or just, go to a party being like, okay, I know one person here and I'm going to do my best to not just talk to this one person all night long. So I always make sure that I go places when I'm like, all right, this is a networking event. I always make sure that I go to places with like a buddy that
Yeah.
also doesn't really like it, but we're like, okay, here we are. This is a necessity. We're gonna suck it up and do it. And so we'll just like tag team, like, oh, I know this person. Cool, let me introduce you. And then we go and talk to them for a second. And then we like take a break, grab a drink, and they're like, oh, I know this person. Okay, let's go talk to them for a second. And it's a lot easier if you have networking friends.
For people moving from like small towns anywhere in the United States to either LA or New York, do you have any advice for like networking as an actress without being without like throwing that competitive nature in there? Because I mean, it comes out in people.
Yeah, it really does. And I think the most important thing to understand about networking is that it is not a competition. It is not like you in the conversation don't have any more to offer than the person standing next to you. So if you find yourself in a conversation with like another actor that looks like you or another actor that's your type, it's not necessarily about, oh, well, I need to dominate this conversation and I need to look the coolest. Like the person standing next to you that looks like you might have just as many resources that you can give each other. And I think it's a really important concept for especially women in Hollywood to really remember that we need to lift each other up and not tear each other down. Like I am nobody's competition. I am a resource. I am a friend. And just like, you know, everyone, like everyone else around me. We don't fight the patriarchy by fighting each other. So
Yes.
there's that. But if for the best place that I have learned to network is in classes. It is the easiest and most accessible way to do so. It's harder now that everything is Zoom, but when, God, knock on wood, when the world goes back to normal, COVID wise, the first thing that anyone needs to do when they move to Los Angeles is get in a class. And there are classes that casting directors look for more than others. But find a class that you vibe with, that's your style and you like the people in it, and then meet the people in your class, exchange numbers, follow them on Instagram. Because when you're in an acting class, everybody's an actor, everybody's there for the same reason. And so it's a lot easier to build connections that way than to go to a random industry party and try and meet, you know, strangers. So acting classes honestly are the easiest way to network because it's just the intentions are already like-minded.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And then since you got involved in LA theater before getting your equity card, obviously, which yeah. I didn't know until I think you post about it? You're the one who posted about it last year?
I think so. Yeah.
I think you posted about it, and I was like, yeah. Wait, what? Uh-huh. How did you manage to do that, and what was your first show that you participated in LA theater community-wise?
The first show that I participated in was an independently produced show called Pedestrian, and it was awful. It was in 2012, and it went up at the Lounge Theater, tiny 99 seat, and it was terrible. But the first show that I did that actually, you know, people came to see was at Sacred Fools.
Okay.
I was a company member there for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, you had a lot of shows from that theater on your resume.
But that's actually how I met Michael Shaw Fisher, who then introduced me to Allie Miller, who then brought me into Cherry Poppins. So that was, working at Sacred Fools was a big door opener for me as far as just like connections and contacts and people. Yeah, but I got my equity card actually. I had, the show got canceled, but I joined equity for a show at Center Theater Group. It was it would have been my first time working with that company.
One day.
I know. They would still love to do the show. They've communicated with us, like they're very sad that they had to cancel it. But you know, everything is so up in the air. Yeah. With Center Theater Group, they just don't have any funding. So hopefully I'll get to do the show there eventually. But it was called The Art Couple, which was a remount. Something that I love that Center Center Theater Group does is they have this thing called Block Party, and they take submissions from the 99 seat theater community and pick like 2 or 3 shows to then like produce under the umbrella of CTG and like pay for it, equity contracts for everybody. And the show would run for 2 weeks. I think there was like 16 or 17 performances, including previews.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good number.
Yeah. Yeah. It would Tuesday through Sunday, double shows, Saturdays and Sundays, and then Mondays were dark. But yeah, it was supposed to open March. I think our first preview was March 19th. So Mayor Garcetti announced that no gatherings or like venues that had over 250 people or events that like that had to cancel. And it was like our day before moving into the Kirk Douglas for Beck for our first 10 of 12. And we were like, well, okay.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
That's really heartbreaking, especially when you're like, when it's like a bucket list item probably for you. And you're like, I'm going to get crossed off. Yay. And then.
I know. It's insane. Like I had, in like November of last year, I signed with a brand new commercial agent whom I love. I'm still with her. But like November, I signed with a brand new commercial agent. I had just closed the world premiere of a new musical. And I had like just got the news about CTG. And so then I joined Equity, and I was like, yes, everything is going my way. I'm going to have a great 2020. And then
the world ended. Have a great 2020.
Yeah. And it was insane too, because I was like, yes, I'll be performing at Center Theater Group at night, but now I'll have my Equity card so I can just walk right on into any Equity audition that I want during the day. I'll probably book work for the rest of the year. I was like, yes, this is going to be great.
Does that Equity card now help you with like online auditions too though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm still able to, a lot of theaters are doing video auditions, which is fantastic, but at the same time, no theaters are really opening. I think it was a month ago that the first production, it was a production of Godspell.
Yeah, I'm in Berkshire.
Yes, yeah, and that was the first show that opened, with like COVID precautions in place. But most theaters are just staying dark, so they have these seasons planned and they're auditioning for them, but half the time you don't hear anything back because the start date's been pushed so far. But
the tour is getting delayed right now, which is heartbreaking as a theater person.
Oh yeah. I miss theater so much. I really, really miss it. And I know so many of my actor friends who are also mainly theater people are in the same boat. We're just, it's not, it comes in waves, I guess, but it's just like, when the thing that you're the most passionate about is just not a thing anymore. And then also moving forward, it's just, we don't know when it will be a thing again. So it's bizarre to just have your livelihood and your passion just like gone.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Cherry Poppins earlier and Allie and all of them. So
yeah.
When did you first get involved in that show? And was it, because it's got, like, even this year or this past year in 2019, I watched the success of that show kind of take off.
Yeah.
And more people seem to find out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like brilliant marketing. Don't know who's in charge of that, but
yeah, that's a group effort, but mostly it's Allie and Sarah Wines kind of nail that. But yeah, so Cherry Poppins has been around for, oh my gosh, I think 5 years. I think they started in 2012, maybe longer than that. 8 years, something.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I'm obviously not a founding member. But I got involved in like 2018, um, when they were kind of like the resident company at three clubs. Yeah, and so they just like constantly had shows running there. It was after they ran Harry Poppins and the Knock Shop of Secrets at three clubs for like 9 months because it was so popular.
Wow.
And then yeah, I did a few shows with them. Um, Mainly the first big one that I did, I had like popped in to cover a couple roles in a few different shows that they had, but um I originated the role of Kelly in our musical that Michael Shaw Fisher wrote, Dr. Nympho versus the Sex Zombies, in the first time we did it in the Hollywood Fringe. So that was my first role that like I created with them. And then we did it again at Celebration Theater, which was a blast to get to remount the show in like a different way. We also recorded that original cast album, which was super fun. But yeah, I think more people started hearing about Cherry Poppins when they moved to the Rockwell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which has been such a wonderful thing for us as a company, just to like have a space and have a bigger audience space too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like an audience space where you can do a lot and move around and
Yeah. And also like the audience space at Rockwell is more familiar with what Cherry Poppins kind of does, just because, it's a burlesque show that started in bars, you know what I
yeah.
mean? So at the Rockwell, the kind of interactive shows that they do with Cherry Poppins just kind of fit right in.
So, can you go a little more into depth for people who don't know about what Cherry Poppins is?
Yes, yes. Okay, so we're a musical theater cabaret burlesque company. I think Ali Abri, she called it caburlesque. But yeah, so for example, the one of the shows that was really popular was our version of The Craft. We called it The Craftlesque, where it's a parody of the movie. Ali wrote it, and she like threw in musical numbers, mostly pop songs. There were a few musical theater pieces, I think, in there. No, mostly pop. Um, and yeah, then performed in a lot of the musical numbers are also burlesque numbers.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I went to my first one, I think, last December, and it's such an experience.
Yeah.
It's such a good vibrant like nightlife show.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something that drew me to the company in the first place um, was that Cherry Poppins is very much all about body positivity. So, like, there are some people in the shows that are like professional dancers and like incredibly in shape, and then we also have plus size performers and people with just like regular normal bodies, and we don't all look like Rockettes. And it's something that I feel is really important in our industry. That's kind of becoming more of a movement at the moment, that everybody doesn't have to be stick thin to be an ingenue.
Yeah.
And everybody doesn't have to be, a perfect size 2 to be in a burlesque show.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the concepts for those shows are awesome and the titles are hilarious. I love it how like they intertwine the titles into a burlesque title,
Yeah.
like movie titles into a burlesque title.
Hmm.
Have you gotten to be like part of the creative process at all for that?
I haven't. I'm not much of a writer. So the like Michael Shaw Fisher wrote one of our original musicals, Dr. Nympho, and then Ali is pretty much the writer for everything else. I think she's had since we moved to the Rockwell. I think a couple of other people have helped with the concept and or like writing it. But for the most part, that genius is all Allie Miller. She's incredible.
And then do you have a favorite show that you've done with them so far?
Yeah. Dr. Nympho versus the Sex Zombies. Just
Okay.
because when Michael was writing the show, he told me that he had me in mind for Kelly. So it was a really cool thing to, and that, like, don't let the title fool you. The show is hysterical and brilliant and so funny, and like witty and smart. It's about it's about zombies where the virus is transmitted through sex. It's really funny. Anyway, but yeah, that was my favorite show to do with them, just because it was like, oh, that's my role. I made that.
Yes. Originating role.
Yeah, yeah,
And then through that, because last year you were involved in one of Jordan's productions of Walk to Remember.
yeah.
So through that, did you meet Jordan, or how did you end up meeting Jordan Ross and getting involved with
It's funny. I've actually been in Jordan's circle for a while. So since he did Cruel Intentions the first time at the Rockwell. Yeah. So my old roommate who lives in San Francisco now, his name he's not dead. His name is Tyler Sheaf. He
Okay.
originated one of the roles in Cruel Musical.
Yeah.
So I was living with him at the time. So I think I saw it at the Rockwell like 5 different times. So I saw all the iterations of casts. And then I wasn't when that was happening, that's when I was kind of taking a break from the industry. So Jordan didn't really know me as an actor. I was just Tyler's roommate, Tyler's yoga teacher roommate. And then he kept producing shows and I kept seeing them. And then I went to go see Allie in Jennifer's Body when she was understudying for Megan Fox's role. Yeah, and then eventually I got involved in A Walk to Remember because Jordan needed people for a table read because he didn't have all the roles cast yet. And he used to live really close to me, and so I was just like, well, I'm available. I'm not doing anything. So I went over and I participated in the table read, and then when I got home, he was just like, "Do you want to just be in the show? Because you killed that." And I was like, "Well, yes, I do. Thank you." So yeah, then I played Sally in A Walk to Remember.
What was that whole experience like in that show? Like, because it's very different from Cherry Poppins show.
Oh yeah. Oh, super different. Yeah, nobody takes off their clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, so it challenges you to like a new degree.
Yeah, I mean, I had done musical theater my
Yeah.
whole life, so it like switching between the two was not a thing. But yeah, I what I love most about being in Jordan shows is that Elmo Zapp, who arranges the music, is brilliant.
Yes.
The some of the musical mashups that happened in that show were so much fun to sing. And I just really love singing with other people. So even though like my role was very small, getting to sing music like that was so much fun to do.
Are you a Walk to Remember fan, like movie fan?
I mean,
Okay.
I it's like a fun, silly movie. Um, Shane West is not the best actor. God bless him.
So
But
cute.
yeah, so cute, very handsome. But yeah, it was a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a movie.
Yep.
I mean, Only Hope is phenomenal.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And I do love Mandy Moore. Always been a real big Mandy Moore fan.
Yes. Did you listen to Mandy Moore music when growing up?
Oh yes, I still know Candy by heart.
I was gonna say, what's your favorite Mandy Moore song?
Yeah, no, it's Candy.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Love that.
Basically, honest, any of the 3 Mandy Moore songs that were in center stage, I love it.
She's phenomenal, and she's like still singing too.
Yeah,
On
and
This
still
Is Us.
acting. She's
Yeah.
killing it on This Is Us.
On This Is Us, yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Incredible. And then I mean, obviously, 2020 didn't go as planned for
Yep.
you, which we talked about a little earlier.
Yeah.
But after 20, after like this year's back and stuff, hopefully, do you have a dream role or a bucket list item on your theater list that you're looking forward to accomplishing?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a dream role per se. I think the thing that I really want to do, I really want CTG to produce the show that I was supposed to do before quarantine because it's brilliant. God, it's such a good show and it's so funny. And I think it audiences would really love to see a kind of, like silly farcical comedy right after this is over. Like back in public, I can laugh with people again. Yes, let me see something funny. I really, really want to do that show again. And other than that, just like audition and book some stuff and be a working actor. At this point, I want to make some art.
Yes.
That's it. I want to make some art that is socially responsible, that matters, that has a whole bunch of people of color in it. Like as a white person, I would love to feel like a minority in the room. Um, and I'm not picky. I just want to
Well,
sing and act and make some art.
yes, and entertain people.
Yes. I want to make people laugh, want to make people feel things.
Yes. And real quick, because just getting your equity card, do you have any advice for people who are looking to get equity cards to go into auditions and stuff?
Um, yeah, I mean it's such a crapshoot. The only way to get it is just, go to as many union auditions as you can. Even if you're EMC or non-union, the only way to get equity points is to work at an equity theater that offers them. Like you have to have a certain number of weeks worked at equity theaters as a non-union performer in order to be eligible. Um, Also, I lucked into my card like wholeheartedly because CTG wanted to pick up the whole show with the original cast. It was, this is a union contract, so you cannot take your card if you want to, or you can take it, but we're going to take $100 out of your paycheck every week for your dues. And I chose to take it. But yeah, you can luck into it and get a contract at a union theater that's just like, do you want it? And you take it, and yes. Otherwise, it's, go to a union audition and book the job as a non-union performer and then work however many weeks. I think it's like 52. I think you have to work a year, something like that. It's a lot. It's hard to join. It's just like SAG. It's really hard to join SAG as well.
That's a it's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's difficult, and I am one of the lucky ones, and I will fully admit that.
I feel like people think that it's like, oh yeah, like if I move out to LA or New York, like I can get it tomorrow, easy. It's like, nah.
Yeah, because there aren't very many union companies that are actually in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times you audition in LA to leave LA for a bit and then come back and then stay here for a minute and then leave again for another contract and come back.
And then speaking of leaving LA, I mean, what I know you love LA, but now that you have the equity card under your belt, has New York come back to your mind at all, or are you looking to stay in LA as a theater actress?
You know what's funny? The thought hasn't even crossed my mind, not for like a second.
Really?
It's not a bad idea. I don't know. I could possibly just sublet my apartment
Yeah.
and like be a gypsy in New York for a couple of months and see what happens. Not right now,
Yeah, no,
obviously,
obviously.
because that would be a terrible idea.
I don't think there's much happening right now.
No, no, not much at all. But Yeah, I don't know. Anything can happen. It's funny. When I first moved to LA, I was just like, okay, I live in LA now, period. That's it. And
Yeah.
it took me a second to just be like, girl, you can come back and leave at any time. It's not a big deal. Except I have two cats now, so it makes the travel a little bit different. Um, but I that's funny. It hadn't even crossed my mind to like try out something new for a second, but I could very feasibly do that.
Yeah, and not have to basically wait in the same kind of line as people who are tourists waiting for rush lines for
Yeah,
tours waiting. Because
yeah,
that's what it sounded like when you described it. It was like, well, I did that when I was going to see a show and trying to get rush tickets for a show. I woke up at like 6
yeah,
a.m.
yeah,
Just it's crazy.
yeah.
And
It's
then
nuts.
yeah, yeah, it's such a complicated industry sometimes.
Oh yeah,
Oh
with
yeah.
a really high barrier to entry. Like there's a lot that you have to know, um, and you don't know it until you know it.
Yes, for sure. And then I missed this question earlier, but I have to know, speaking of Broadway,
Okay.
what was the first like professional touring or Broadway show that you ever saw?
Okay. Cats.
Oh,
Yep. There was a national tour of Cats that rolled through Houston. Oh, I think I was really young. I think I was like 6 or 7.
did the cat come up to you in the audience? Were you on an aisle seat?
I think so. I think so.
That terrified me.
Yeah.
That absolutely terrified me at age like how old was I last year? Whatever age I was last year.
Oh, I think I loved it. I remember just being like when the cat was like in the aisleway.
Yes. That's what someone else said who saw it as a kid. And he was like, well, I think it's because I saw it as a kid. And it was like cats. Like, what can cats do? Like, they aren't creepy to you
Yeah.
when they're life size cats. So,
A
do you
show
remember?
about nothing.
Yeah, basically. Do you remember who you saw in the role?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea. Yeah, I do remember the first time I went to New York, the summer after my fifth grade year, my mom took me to New York and we saw 3 Broadway shows. We saw Phantom of the Opera, Annie Get Your Gun, and Kiss Me Kate. And to
Oh,
this day, Kiss Me Kate is still one of my favorite shows. Um, and I remember the guy who we saw as the male lead in Annie Get Your Gun had played Gaston in the national tour of Beauty and the Beast that I had seen a few years back.
oh,
Hmm. So that was kind of cool. I was like,
yeah.
he used to travel and now he's here.
He used to be Gaston. Whoa.
Yeah. Funny enough, those roles are a little similar.
He plays 2 different parts. What?
Yeah, I remember in fifth grade, my mom pointed out to me and she was like, read his bio. Look, we saw him in this. And I was like, he was in Houston. And she was like, yeah, that was a tour. They go everywhere. And I was like,
I don't believe you. Yeah, kids are smart.
Yeah, that possibility didn't make any sense to me. I was like, that Gaston is still that Gaston. Like, no, he moved on to better
He's
things.
still in Houston.
Yeah, my brain could just like not wrap my head around
Your
it.
mom is like, no, he's not still in Houston.
I think eventually
Yeah.
she was, okay, honey, okay.
Okay. And then who speaking of actors in the entertainment industry, who do you look up to in like the theater industry or in TV and film industry?
Hmm. Ooh. Um, it's funny. I really look up to Keanu Reeves.
Oh.
Um, yeah, because he is such a wonderful person. I feel like everyone in the industry that's worked with him has this story of him doing this like wonderful thing for them. He's just genuinely a very nice person. Like donated a whole bunch of his salary from the Matrix to the like special effects and costume people, essentially making them all millionaires because he was like, the film wouldn't have been as good without you, and I don't need all this money that I have. Like donates millions to cancer research. He's like, there are all these stories. It's funny. I was like 2 nights ago, I just went down this like good story about Keanu Reeves hole. And there are so many people who are just like, this guy in this Porsche pulled over on the side of the highway when my car was broken down and he helped me jump it and it was Keanu Reeves. And like all of this kind of stuff like that. If you just do a quick Google search about Keanu Reeves is a good person, there's so much. And he's been a working actor for so long and he's still so excited about making movies. And he's genuinely just such a nice dude. And a lot of really horrible things have happened to him. And I don't know, I think the more that I work in this industry, the more I look up to not the best actors or, you know, the highest paid ones, but it's the ones who still maintain all of their humanity in one of the hardest industries to work in. So I have so much respect for people like him that are just really nice and just really genuinely excited to go to work and make a movie and change the world.
Yeah, and it's like I want to be like that someday and
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
like have stuff to give back to people. Anyway, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know he did all that.
Yeah.
But I'll have to look up those stories because good stories are really needed right now in this world.
Yeah. And there are so many of them. It'll make you feel good for a minute.
Yeah, yeah, I need that. I need anything heartwarming in my life immediately. Yeah. And then, do you have is there a funniest moment that's happened to you on stage that you can think of in the show? These are some of my favorite stories.
Funniest moment. God, I'm sure. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, the last musical I did, Deadly at Sacred Fools, brand new musical about the serial killer H.H. Holmes. But the set was a bunch of moving platforms that we would like move around to create different levels. There were like 2 stories and like 2 sets of stairs and like 3 different levels of platforms. It was really cool. It all kind of fit together like a puzzle piece. But there was this one musical number where the set went through like 6 or 7 different changes within like 4 minutes. It was this like highly choreographed piece of, it was really hard. And like all of the platforms were on wheels. Anyway, so the production had a lot of trouble with people like booking things and having to leave or having conflicts. And so it felt like every weekend we would have somebody new in as an understudy. And with this musical number, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, exactly when you need to be there and do it, so many things can go wrong. So all of the platforms were on wheels that had locks. And in order for the platforms to be stable, the wheels had to be locked so they wouldn't move. And one of the locks got locked when it was supposed to be unlocked during the number. So then the platforms weren't moving, but there wasn't a way to communicate to people what was going on. So it was like, it was locked when it's supposed to be unlocked, and then people like flipped it in the wrong times. And so this whole musical number where like I'm singing like high C's for my part in the ensemble. Yeah. And we're like pushing these platforms, and eventually we just had to muscle it because they had to move. So we were just like, on the side of it, I just like kind of lifted up this thing to just like shove it and rotate it and move it to where it needed to go, while I'm just like singing this incredibly high soprano part. Just it was hilarious and afterthought, very frustrating, in the moment. I think we all came into the dressing room just being like, what the fuck?
Yes. These funniest moments are like either mortifying, like frustrating for people, or frustrating for people at the time, and then like later they're like, okay, I guess like that's funny.
Yeah. Most of the time the funny stage stories are funny in hindsight.
Yes. Yes. Now that you look back at it, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I can laugh.
Yeah.
And then do you have like a dream song that you'd want to perform on stage one day from any musical?
Yes. Yes. So in Love from Kiss Me Kate, or She Used to Be Mine from Waitress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good choices. Good
Yeah.
choices. And then going off that, if you could revive any musical that's now closed on Broadway, what would it be?
Oh. Mm. I mean, I have a good like 15 years, 10, 15 years. But I selfishly, I would want to revive it so I could play the mom in Next to Normal.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a couple of years to go,
Oh,
but
so many. I just aged out of Natalie. Depending on the other casting, if they could cast the parents older, I could still play
yeah.
Natalie. I'm a little old, but yeah, I Next to Normal. I fucking love that musical. I don't know if I'm supposed to curse on this. I'm sorry. I have
It's okay. Yeah,
fantastic. But God, I love Next to Normal so much. So yes.
hey. Well, if they made like a movie or anything too.
Yeah. I can't imagine that they wouldn't, that musical movies are
Yeah.
so
And
popular right now.
with the creators just did 13 Reasons. So they're in the whole TV movie.
Really?
At least one of the creators just did,
Ah,
or was a writer on 13 Reasons.
huh. I didn't
So
know.
yeah.
Cool beans.
Yeah. So I mean, could happen.
Yeah. Well, I'll just cross my fingers that it doesn't happen too soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I mean, or you could play younger.
Sure, yeah. On screen I do look younger.
On screen you can play younger.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And then what's a fun fact about you or a hidden talent that people wouldn't know?
Oh. Fun fact. I'm always so bad at these questions. I
don't
I
know.
always have like a
No pressure.
great answer for them. I don't know. I guess I'm not very okay. Well, fun fact, I have over 24 hours of tattoos on my body.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
What? Okay, brave. All that.
Yeah,
And
I have two. I have one on both feet, and then I have this really big side tattoo. If you've seen any Cherry Poppins show, you've seen the whole thing. And then I have another small one on my hip, but like collectively, not all at the same time. Not all at the same time.
That'd be impressive.
Yeah, different session. I think the longest session I've sat for was 4 hours, but
Could never. I too ADHD to ever sit still.
I have to watch movies.
Okay. Yeah, see.
Yeah. I learned that the first long session that I sat through, I was listening to music, like, and people kept trying to talk to me, and I was just like, I don't want you to, just don't talk to me, ignore me, talk to somebody else. And like my tattoo artist was like, great, fantastic. You don't have to make small talk. Awesome, I can just work. And so I just watched a movie, and it's so much easier to sit through. So
Yeah.
if you ever get a long tattoo, watch a movie.
Any go-to movies?
It's always it's drama. Because if you laugh and they're working on a part of your body that like shakes when you laugh, it can mess up the tattoo needle. So like, like really gripping like thriller drama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good advice. And then, um, random question. What's
Yeah.
your favorite 90s song?
90s song. Okay. 90s. Dang it. I mean, I do really love Fast Car by Tracy Chapman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that. And then another random question is what's the first thing you're gonna do once quarantine ends?
Hug all my friends.
It's a common answer.
I want to hug all my friends. Yeah, it's funny. I haven't been out to eat or anything just because I'm still too paranoid. Like I'll get takeout and stuff, but I
Yeah.
haven't really done anything social at all. But I want to just like get all my friends into one room and just hug all of them for
Yes.
hours.
That's a common answer, or throw a party with everyone is a common answer.
Yeah. I don't even care what we do or where we are. I just want to hug people. That's all.
Yes. And then if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, if we weren't in quarantine or if it were safe to travel, where would you
Right,
travel?
yeah. Also, if Americans weren't, a global embarrassment and we're actually allowed to
If
travel
we're allowed
anywhere
to travel.
ever again.
Yeah.
Um, I would really love to go to Ireland.
Ooh.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
My family has Irish roots. My mother's maiden name was McClarity, like 5 generations removed. But yeah, I would love to go to Ireland.
Yes. Irish accents are cute too.
Yes, they are.
They're
Yes,
kind of like
they are.
precious and cute and hot at the same time, you know? I don't know.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's a lot.
Oh, I love them. Into them.
Gotta watch some Irish movies after
Yeah,
this. Yeah.
definitely.
And then what when live theater comes back,
Mhm.
then how do you think it will be different when it is finally able to come back safely?
Oh, I just don't know. Like I feel more importantly, um, aside from like the safety regulations, I really do hope that there is more diversity in theater, in our storytelling, in our casting, in our production teams. Um, Theater has just been too white for too long. So that is the number one thing I hope will change, most importantly. And I don't know, as far as safety regulations, like, I don't think people are just going to be so cautious.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to share food. Like I don't want a communal snack table anymore.
Like at Rockwell,
you know,
you come over
like
to
every rehearsal space always has like a snack table or a fridge and
yeah.
like here's a thing of chocolate covered almonds that everybody's hands has been in.
Yeah.
So I don't like there's that, but also I mean any sort of theater production where people have to kiss, like
Me.
without a vaccine, COVID testing is just going to become the norm. Like honestly, without a vaccine, the only way I would feel comfortable making theater again is if all of the actors were housed together after quarantining together, temperature checks before the start of rehearsals, um, no visitors, like everybody gets their food from the same places, basically just like summer camp for theater rehearsals. But it's such a weird thing. Like, are the actors not allowed to greet their family members after the show if they come to see it? And it's
It's
bizarre. Like how do we keep everybody safe? I don't know. I would do all those things. All like all that seems so difficult, but I would do it if I booked a theater contract and they were just like, come and live on this place until the show ends and don't see anybody else. I'd be like, yes, great. I'm making theater cool. I don't need to see my boyfriend for 6 months. That's fine. I'll call him. We'll FaceTime. It's fantastic. I'll see him from 12 feet away. He'll come see the show. I'll wave. It'll be fine.
Yes. But it's like you also need to think about the audience members too, like when you're thinking about that, and it's like that gets so complicated.
I know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that and the complications of that, do you think that since virtual theater has been like such a big thing during the past couple months that it'll stick around when live theater comes back?
I really do. I really do. I think people are getting so good at it, and there are some really imaginative things happening with streamed theater that I can't imagine that it's a medium that just goes away. Like, yes, as an actor, I will always, always prefer to be on a stage and in front of an audience. There's an energy there that's completely irreplaceable. Um, but yeah, I can't imagine that virtual theater goes anywhere. I feel like it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Um, I also kind of imagine a future where like what I just talked about, there's a group of actors hired for a thing, and they're quarantined together during rehearsals, and then the performance is filmed maybe once, twice, three different times, and then audience members can view it from home. So they're still seeing like a live staged production, but there's no audience in the house, and you buy a ticket and you can rent it on whatever streaming platform they put it out. I also see that kind of future. I haven't heard about anything like that yet, but
They're filming Diana on Broadway right now.
Yep.
They're like without an audience. And then I don't know where they're gonna release it, but I think either Netflix or Broadway HD or something.
That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like every Broadway show eventually, I mean, I know they film all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, quarantining the actors and bringing them in to perform a show that they already know that they can film, and people everywhere can have access to a Broadway show. Like, one, I want that to be a regular thing anyway, because Broadway is so inaccessible. The only way I go see Broadway shows anymore is rush tickets.
Yeah. Yep.
I was in New York this past December, and I bought tickets for one show. Oh gosh, what's it called? Dang it. The show about the island. Once on the Not one. No, I saw that one. We rushed that though. Once on this island, right before it closed. The show about the plane from 9/11 in the.
Oh, Come From Away.
Come From Away. Thank you. I love that show. It was such a fun. Yeah, but I saw Come From Away, which was the only one I bought regular price tickets for. Rushed Anastasia, rushed Once on This Island, and rushed To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah, we were there for 4 days and we saw 4 shows.
As the theater person does in New York.
Yeah, standing room only for To Kill a Mockingbird. Yeah, my 68-year-old mom stood next to me, and I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure we can do this?" And she was like, "As much as you've told me about this show and how good it's gonna be, I'm not missing this. We'll stand. It's fine." And she did. She was a trooper. I mean, granted, after the show, she was like, "We are sitting and we are having a drink."
Yeah. She's like, "I'm not getting up for the next like 5 hours."
Yeah. Saw Hamilton standing room only too.
Ooh, that's smart.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
But that was back when it was first on Broadway. I got to see most of the original cast.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what an opportunity.
Oh, lucked into it. One of the girls in the ensemble, Sasha Hutchings, she went to school with me at OCU. Yeah, and she is really good friends with my best friend, Lionel Renault. So I was visiting Lionel at the time, and Sasha reserved 2 standing room only tickets for us to see it.
Oh,
It was incredible. I almost was glad that I was standing and not sitting because you could kind of like dance a little bit.
Yes.
It was
That
amazing.
that's one show I'm really sad I haven't gotten to see live yet because of, as you mentioned, theater is so inaccessible.
Yeah.
But it's like it's
God, it's so expensive. Broadway is so expensive.
yeah. And it's like especially the popular shows, you like Hamilton, like if right now, unless you're willing to pay like who knows how much,
Yeah. I mean, well, honestly, unless you win the lottery,
yeah,
you're not seeing Hamilton
yeah.
because
And it's like a
tickets
whole
are like sold out so far in advance. But yeah, no, I'll rush a Broadway show. Partial view, great. I don't care. I'll
yes,
sit around a podium, fantastic.
yes. All my seats were partial view last trip to New York. They were
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
And then getting going on to some of the last questions, but what would what if you could give Jordan or Allie any ideas for a movie to adapt into a musical next, what would it be?
Ooh. Um, uh, it wouldn't do very well because it's not very popular, but there's this movie from I think the early 2000s. It's called Get Over It. Um, and it has built-in musical numbers. I don't know
Ooh.
if they could use any for rights, but basically, and like everyone is in it. Kirsten Dunst is in it, Mila Kunis is in it, Cisco was in it, Ben Foster played the romantic lead. Um, uh, Colin Hanks was in it. Martin Short was in it. Everybody.
Like a huge cast. I think
Huge
I've heard it.
cast. Yeah, and it's so ridiculous and it's so silly, but basically a high school Shane West is in it. Oh my gosh, funny. Full circle. There we go.
Love him.
Um who he has a terrible British accent in this movie. It's so bad. It's so bad.
it's
Oh, Zoe
he's
Saldana is also in it. Dang, before she blew up. But if a high school does a musical production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and like Ben Foster is trying to get his girlfriend back, who's dating Shane West, who's this like British pop star that's randomly going to high school at an American public high school.
movies.
Kirsten Dunst plays his best friend's younger sister, who's like writing some of the songs for the show. It's ridiculous. But it's so funny. I think
Yes.
it's streaming somewhere, I think on Netflix. So if you're in for like a very it's a very like it hits the 2000s zeitgeist right on the nose. It's like the most 2000s movie I've ever seen. So if you're in that kind of mood, get over it.
I was gonna say even the band boy or musician going to like a public high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it that describes all the Cinderella story movies.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
why is this like famous pop star going to this public school in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah.
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 And then uh what do you think second to last question, what do you think makes LA theater so special? Because it's such like a special community and tight knit.
Honestly, I think it's just because of the sense of community that we have. Um, because I think a lot of the theater elite in other places view Los Angeles theater as kind of the underdog or like it doesn't matter or it's not as important as New York or Chicago or it's full of, TV actors just trying to make a name for themselves on stage and get exposure. I think because there's a lot of that feeling and also like equity also views Los Angeles as an underdog, like we're a market that isn't as important to the union as other markets, unfortunately. um, and I think because of that we've taken that sort of scrappy underdog mentality and just been like, oh yeah, well watch what kind of theater we can make then.
Yeah.
And we look out for each other and it's funny, the connections that I've made in the industry that have helped me in other places, they have all come from the theater industry, not from TV and film. Anytime I get a recommendation, or I have this agent that you would be really good for, or let me, give this to my casting director. It's all in the theater community. It hasn't come from being on set. It's come from being on stage. So we take care of each other. We have each other's backs because we know how hard it is in the industry as a whole, and there's just this like wonderful sense of community that we all maintain and uplift.
Yes. And I can't speak for every audience member, but like I, as an audience member, like there's something like that you don't get when going to a Broadway theater from going to an LA theater performance. It's just like you feel the closeness.
I love that. Yeah.
It's a wonderful experience, and truly something that everyone should experience no matter where they're from once in their life.
Yeah. I love it. I love that.
Yes. And then lastly, have you been working on anything during this downtime that you'd want to promote, whether it's singing, acting, anything?
Honestly, no. My main sort of priority at the moment is just kind of like staying sane.
Yeah.
So there are a few projects that I'm kind of like leaning towards doing myself, but nothing at the moment right now to promote, just kind of like, doing whatever I can to not lose it.
Yeah, we are all.
Yeah. I think especially when this started, there was a mentality of like, well, now you have time to do all of the things that you've always said that you were going to do. And I think that's it's such a damaging view to have of this time at the moment, because there's a global civil rights movement. People are still being murdered by the police, and protesters are being shot at with rubber bullets, and there are so many human rights violations going on, and my industry is no longer a thing, and I lost my job, and I lost my survival job, and there's just our president doesn't care about us, and it's such a triggering time. Like, we're all going through this kind of collective trauma.
Yeah.
And anybody telling you, oh, you should be working on your craft right now, is an asshole.
Yeah, it's like, if you can handle it, great, but
yeah, there is a certain amount of if you have the mental wherewithal to work on your craft and still be in classes and film stuff in your house, awesome. I am so proud of you. Good job. But this sense of you should be doing this, like, I don't have to be doing anything right now. What I need to be doing is taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And in whatever way my mental health dictates that I need to. So that was my little soapbox for the moment.
No, I love that because it is so important. Like, I mean, there's some people who, yes, they are working on stuff, and it's like, great, good for them.
Yeah,
like,
I'm so proud of you. I can't wait to watch it.
I love that. And then there's some people like who proudly admit that they need this time to concentrate on them, and that's important too. Both sides are important.
Absolutely. I think
people need to
most importantly is just chasing happiness right now. Mm-hmm. And if making art makes you happy, yes. And if sitting on the couch and binge watching season 2 of The Umbrella Academy all day because it's too hard to get up off of the couch, yes. You're still consuming art, and you're great. But I think there have been a few casting directors, and I won't name names because that's dangerous, but that just like posting things that are shaming people or guilting people into thinking like, now is a chance for you to get ahead on your career, and why aren't you updating your reel, and why aren't you making sure that you're submitting to different casting directors, and why aren't you in classes, and why aren't you in this and that? Because I lost my job? and I don't have money for that. Like, so I think that like you should be doing X, Y, and Z right now is um a dangerous way of thinking.
Especially when people are isolated, and it's like isolation makes people's mindset so much.
Insane. It makes people crazy. Like
Yeah.
no one in our generation's history, there hasn't ever been a period where we've been forced into this kind of isolation. So that the mental trauma that we will all endure collectively for years and years to come is not something that's just gonna like, oh, quarantine's over, back to normal.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
I,
I'm gonna be washing my hands for 20 seconds for the rest of my life. Like,
I mean, I think most people are, but I can't speak for the guys on that.
no, that's fair.
I can't speak for the guys because I'm not sure what mentality they have on that.
Yeah.
Anyways, to keep up with you and anything in the future that you do, where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is Kristyn_Evelyn. So KRISTYN_Evelyn, EVELYN. And then my Instagram handle is I am Kristyn Evelyn. Yeah. Those
Fantastic.
places and anything that I work on or post on YouTube always goes up on my on my Instagram page. So
Yes, love that. So you do have a YouTube channel and stuff? Where you
I
post?
do. It's like, I post things randomly on there.
Yeah,
It's not like I like have a channel and I upload things. It's like, whenever I do a cover with my boyfriend or like, hey, here's a new reel, that goes up on my YouTube.
yes. Well, anyways, thanks for talking to me on this again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was lovely to like see you and chat with you because I
Yeah,
don't think we've never had the opportunity to like really talk, but I see you in the audience in everything. And like
I miss.
I I know I'm just like I know I speak for at least everyone in Cherry Poppins and like all of Jordan's shows that like it's always so wonderful that you support everything that we do so wholeheartedly and like you go to like every concert and it's just it's great when you're there and we love having such avid fans.
Well, I mean, I love supporting the LA theater community. It's, as I said, it's such like it feels like home to go and support people on who I get to see on stage. Oh, in a majority of shows that I've gotten to see on stage in the past couple of years.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!